Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a very large potential snowstorm, winter storm, severe weather maker. I mean, literally all of those things are pretty appropriate to call, to name this system. This thing will be occurring into next week, not this weekend, from the time frame of around April 12th through the 15th. This thing, for some portions of the United States, will be bringing potentially record amounts of snowfall. In others, potentially very heavy rain, flooding rain, and of course, potentially very worrying and concerning severe weather as of this moment. Yeah, this thing will definitely be probably the strongest spring storm we've had this year so far, and it looks as if it may be just the first of many. I do want to address something real quickly though. So my absence on this channel has been rather, I guess, unexpected, and even for me, usually in the springtime I do kind of, slow down my video production, but this year has been different, and I'm sure, as all of you are aware, the world has been going through a rather kind of a tough period, and basically what I'm trying to get at is that anyone that lives in our country, any person that enjoys the freedoms of our country, and I guess the liberties that it has to offer, should be absolutely outraged with what is going on right now in especially obviously Ukraine, and that's just the daily kind of the barrage of information and whatnot has really just kept me from a mindset of making weather videos, when kind of pales in comparison to what else is going on in the world. So I usually don't get political on this channel, but when it is directly correlated to my absence on this channel, then I have no choice but to mention it. So I just want to make my position firm and clear here. Okay, so let's start talking about this winter storm. Let me just show you the Canadian model, since that's the model I have pulled up initially, and I really don't care to present the models in any particular order, as I will be showing you all of them anyways. Let me start off by just showing you what's going on right now. So we do have this system that is occurring right now across the United States. It's mainly done. It did bring some severe weather, quite a bit of flooding rain towards the south and east, eastern United States. Notice that it does have a lot of this chilly, crummy weather that is kind of just like settled across the Midwest, turned into kind of an upper level low, a lot of showers, just really nothing too unusual for April. But this does scurry out of here by this weekend, and on Saturday and Sunday, especially towards the west, we have this low pressure that starts to develop. Now, this is out ahead of this main one, but why this is important is because it does pretty much a lot of the hard work in shooing away the kind of unfavorable weather conditions for a storm to develop, and sets the stage for that one that we're really concerned about to blossom and flourish. And this one, you can see, does have a few little, I guess, concerning things with it. It does bring in a lot of warm air, pumps it up, you can see, from the Gulf of Mexico, so that's not really anything bad. And it does bring a bit of precipitation, some storms. The Canadian is kind of underplaying this. This could be some maybe not severe weather, but just some thunderstorms, and that's something definitely to watch for. Notice it does develop into a cold front and scurry on towards the north and east, though again, nothing too concerning. Especially it pales to this system, which, by the way, while this thing's occurring on Monday, really late Sunday into Monday, we have this system that moves in towards north and west. And notice that the position of this is, according to the Canadian, right into the Oregon coast, sliding towards the south and west, bringing very good amounts of precipitation towards the Sierra Nevada, Oregon. And that's a silver lining, or in fact kind of a very solid silver lining with this system, is a lot of precipitation across areas that need it. And that does pertain towards the west and also the upper Midwest, where once you'll see the snowfall amounts, it'll definitely help out with the hydrologic issues. It's just that obviously, such heavy amounts as what the system will bring does have a concern of its own with property damage and whatnot. Though again, you can see this one model shows it into Oregon, California, a lot of snow into Nevada, Utah, and while it does seem a bit smaller and weaker at first, it quickly grows. You can see there's a lot of moisture getting tucked into the system. Winds from the south and west, again, because of this system doing a lot of the pushing hard work. This air from the Gulf of Mexico is not I mean, it's just a perfect setup because we have winds from the south and west bringing warm air. We have also these winds from, they're just pretty much straight from the south. You can see these lines right there. And we know they're blowing towards the north because we have a high pressure here that's been clockwise in the northern hemisphere. And it follows these paths of the wind, right? That shows us we know they're flowing towards the north because that's the spin of a low pressure and or high pressure, and the low pressure spins counterclockwise, so it brings any winds that it produces, which it does right here. You can see towards the north and east, and these converge. So this one's bringing a lot of warm air. This one's bringing a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and also warm air. I mean, it is the Gulf of Mexico. It is a very warm, good air for thunderstorm development, but mainly the moisture comes from there. Notice this thing quickly starts exploding. A lot of snow into Wyoming, into Minnesota. Sorry, Montana. Eventually, maybe Minnesota. You'll see. Idaho, right? Utah, South Dakota, North Dakota, starting to see a lot of snowfall. Again, this is still kind of disconnected from the Gulf of Mexico. However, notice that by late Tuesday we do see some concerning thunderstorm development across the south, and this explodes throughout the night. We have several bands, several waves of, I guess, linear storm clusters, and this system continues to explode across the northwest. It brings a lot more snow, a lot more precip. I mean, the moisture flow at this point is extremely organized, and you can see that across Minnesota, a lot of rain develops. Wisconsin, northern Illinois, into South Dakota, North Dakota, a lot of snow as well. You can see this thing is massive. It spreads from really, I mean, almost areas like Winnipeg, cities like Winnipeg, I should say. Though not quite. You will eventually get it, but at this time frame, really Wednesday, it extends from the border of Canada all the way into Colorado, through the panhandles of Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana. Again, this will be a very significant snowfall maker. It has a lot of moisture to work with. These spring systems always do this. They have a ton of atmospheric favorability with them, and they just produce these monsters. Notice these clusters of storms are very concerning. They are extremely powerful with their moisture content, and the winds, the kind of the dry line, if you will, blowing from the west, really adds that unfavorable condition, potentially unfavorable in terms of for humans, but favorable for severe weather. And notice that snowstorm still is just going on. This is now into late Wednesday. This is now into early Thursday, and notice these big clusters continue, not just across the south, potentially way up into Michigan, right by where that system is actually converting into snow or that rain. Also some very significant rainfall amounts, and this thing continues. The Canadian really goes all out with this system. At this point, a lot of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, especially Manitoba, getting quite a bit of snowfall out of this, and this thing starts shearing out. You can see the cold front does start weakening, though again, even into Thursday, we see a pretty nasty line of storms across the south. But and it will continue into the northeast, just weaker. And you can see this system still hanging around. Now again, at this point, it's much lighter snow, much lighter precipitation rates, but what it does is it just kind of meanders and shears out upper level low, and it starts dragging a lot of cool air towards the south, and that's what it does. And you can see it across the northeast also, this system does end up occurring. And it's funny, this system starts on Monday, really late Sunday, and ends early Saturday. And I mean, the United States is big, so that's not unusual, but sometimes you do have systems that just scurry across the country in 1 to 2 days. This thing will be kind of one of those week-long systems. Do note that the Canadian right away pretty much introduces a new system. Again, another big one, not as big, not as impressive, but we'll have to wait and see as it's far out. But maybe dropping snow further areas further south into Minnesota, Wisconsin, but also like south. You can see like Texas, Panhandle, Oklahoma right there. A lot of cold air here. The Canadian shows a pretty extreme anomaly of cold air, so we'll have to wait and see for that. In terms of total snowfall, according to the Canadian model, it's a lot of snow. I mean, this is a ridiculous amount. I won't be calling these amounts, pretty accurate at this point. It's just too far out. But let me tell you that the GFS and the European both agree with the extreme kind of side of these snowfall amounts. The placement is a bit different, but they all show amounts well into the range of 3 feet. Whether or not that's going to happen because all three models show it. And that's not really the right way to approach it, but it is showing us makes us uneasy with the amount of confidence these models are showing with this. And of course, these areas in green make pale to the snow bullseye right here, but that's still almost 2 feet of snow right there. So a lot of good hydrologic kind of relief coming here. The snow won't be washing away the soil like it would in a thunderstorm. It percolates through the soil once it melts. But obviously, if you were to get 42 inches of snow, you do have other issues like roof cavings and what's not. Cattle being pretty much buried with such heavy amounts. So that's not too good in terms of the short-term issues. Total accumulated precipitation, notice, obviously where that snow falls, but across the west, the southwest, I should say more of the Pacific Northwest, the central west, and the Sierra Nevada picking up good amounts. Again, you've had a very, very dry second half of the year, or second half of the winter season. If you recall, December started off promising, and in January, February, March, nothing. This won't make up for those losses, but it will provide a little bit of relief, making some of those inevitable water shortages this upcoming year or water restrictions, whatnot, potentially a bit better, especially since this may be just one of several systems affecting that general area. Now let me show you the GFS. So let's go back to the MSLP and frozen, so kind of the radar. Again, there's our current system blowing away, right? There's that first system that does a lot of that, again, as I mentioned, that carrying away of that hard work, and it does very much in a very similar fashion develop to what the Canadian shows. A lot of warm air getting streamed out ahead of it. Notice we do have that main system, main culprit moving in, and I do note right off the bat, I want to say it's much further towards the north than what the Canadian showed, which showed it across Oregon. This is the most northern model that shows it. The GFS, the European and Canadian are more agreed with a more southern track. We'll have to wait and see which one's more accurate. Notice the GFS a bit more aggressive with the precip. Shows some more snow into Minnesota, into North Dakota, a bit more rain. It does eventually develop a cold front that does, end up producing quite a bit of rain for some areas, but this really, pales in comparison to what's coming. So again, it just kind of gets rid of that cool air, shoves it aside, and brings in again that moist air. It starts that flow right from the southwest. From the south, we have that moisture, we have the warm air. It's a perfect combination, and of course we have a powerful low piece of low pressure, which kind of stirs these things into motions. It churns the atmosphere, if you will, into producing a monster system. And then right there we have the GFS producing a lot of snow already across, again, Minnesota, Montana, Wyoming, into North Dakota, South Dakota eventually, and we do have a lot of severe weather. All models show that. Now the GFS is slightly different because it's a bit more progressive. It's a bit quicker. Notice that by early Wednesday, it's already with the system across North Dakota. It doesn't show as large of an event into the panhandles of Nebraska. Colorado gets a bit less with this, Wyoming, and it does show a lot of rain, a lot of snowfall. It's just not as impressive. You can see it does show a very strong cold front, probably stronger than what the Canadian shows, but again, it's a bit weaker. If you recall, the snow doesn't occur for such a long duration, but again, it's still a powerful system. And what the GFS does differently is that it does eventually shear the system out. It's a bit still more quicker, doesn't hang around as much, and it brings in another new system, which would probably be honestly a better scenario, because the GFS brings a lot more moisture for the southwest, which would be good, but I don't think it's going to occur because, or I think this scenario is more unfavorable, I should say, because the European and Canadian are in agreement, and usually when those two models are aligned, the GFS tends to be the outlier, though again, not always, so we'll have to wait and see. And notice that this one again is another system we'll have to watch for. If you recall, the Canadian did show it. It was just later and weaker. The GFS shows a bit earlier and quite a bit stronger. Look at that massive piece as well. And again, that's why I said it could be the first of several systems. So that's the GFS. Let me show you it's the projected kind of snowfall, and let's just cut off that second one. Let's just focus on what the first one will bring. So right there, let's bring it to our one. Okay, let's right here. All right, so total snowfall, you can see pretty decent amounts across the west, southwest not so much. Again, the central west, the northern areas, of course, North Dakota picking up a lot. That's still a very significant snowfall. It's not 40 inches, but it is still in some areas over 2 feet. Again, probably something a bit more realistic, but again, given the fact that it's not aligned with the European and Canadian, and those two are, this one is actually probably the more unrealistic one, just from that standpoint. And notice that in terms of total precipitation, it is pretty impressive, especially where the clusters of storms will be occurring. Hopefully, it stays just north of the south and east, those areas that got, up to 7 inches in the past few days of rainfall. It's been incredible. So Hopefully they don't get absolutely bombarded by that yet again, because these areas, they've been just absolutely hammered. I saw some of the amounts on the radar kind of estimation were in the almost double digits. I'm sure there were amounts that were probably in the double digits officially across some local areas, as that radar tool that I was using wasn't too precise. But let me show you the European. Now, I do think this one has the best handle. The European often is considered the better model. I don't always agree with that statement, right? And I mean, I don't, but I do think that the European in this case particularly is in a pretty good, I guess, of a scenario. It's a pretty likely scenario. And notice that first off, right off the bat, we have the old system that's going on right now. It spins away, scurries off. We have that system right here. Does a lot of the hard lifting again. Sets that moisture into flow from the south, that warm air from the south and west. It does develop a little bit of snow towards the north, a little bit of rain. You can see clusters of storms. This is definitely something that could provide a little bit of severe weather, especially for your areas right here in that evening development of storms. So that's definitely something to watch for. And otherwise, it kind of scurries away, but it leaves again way for this beast, which you could see that European brings further towards the south in the GFS, and even a bit further south than the Canadian, bringing a lot of snow, more so into Oregon, California, Nevada, versus Washington and Oregon, and into southern Canada. So definitely a different scenario. Notice Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana picking up a lot of snow, and just like the Canadian, it develops the system early on into the mountainous northwest. Obviously, we have the severe weather aspect, pretty similar with most models, pretty extensive right there. You can see maybe even into Illinois some severe weather starting across the south as well. A very organized system already into Montana, dropping a lot of snow, eventually spreading into portions of North Dakota. Some of these areas could see quite a bit of rain before it even converts to snow. And look, right here, just really these lines of storms, these little clusters, definitely the concerning part. The warm front, very explosive, also some probably thunderstorm activity, though probably not of the non-severe kind. And right there, boom, very similar to what the Canadian showed, if you recall, extends that snow through the panhandle of Nebraska into Colorado, into Wyoming, through Montana, and it just goes berserk here. It starts showing very heavy snow, very, very powerful cold front. The dynamics with the system are perfect for also a blizzard. Notice those are extremely packed isobars. And again, long-term wise, this is good moisture, but short-term wise, that's going to be a nightmare. Notice cities like Winnipeg also get impacted by this, right? Mainly Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and further west into Ontario, and eventually Quebec, mainly a rain event. But yeah, this cold front, this system, sits around here for a while, and it eventually does kind of weaken and shears itself out, which again, you can see does bring a cold front towards the northeast, but also just drags itself and a lot of cool air behind it. And then notice that the European does keep things active across the south. This would be pretty bad because of all the rain that's occurred. This is something you wouldn't want, but you can see it does bring even more right there rain across the south and east, kind of like a nor'easter type thing. But that is, still a bit too far out to focus on, but definitely something to watch for. Now, let's take a look at the total accumulated precip. So this is snow and rain all combined into one. Let's just focus when this system's done, not focus on any other systems like that one across the south, which could be bringing a lot of rain in the long range. But notice, these amounts here are just ridiculous. This is definitely something that's very high, very significant. Some of these areas, maybe up to 4 inches from a single storm. That's of from not thunderstorm activity, is very rare and shows the power and the length of this system. Across the northwest, also decent amounts of moisture, though again, nothing extremely helpful, but definitely not this helpful, if you will. And where that severe weather occurs, obviously there will be pockets that, areas that see little rain and areas that see a ton of rain. So that's definitely something we'll have to watch for. And let me take a look at that snowfall now, because that's what everybody wants to see, and you'll want to see this, as this is rather extreme. European, again, considered kind of the more reliable, conservative model. And, I wouldn't say it's conservative with the snowfall here. Up to, again, 3 feet of snow right there easily. For a large area, we'll have to wait and see if this occurs. If it does, this is definitely going to be something of concern. And just to show you on this website the comparisons of the other models, the GFS, it was a weaker scenario, right? If you recall, that I kind of coined a weaker scenario, though that's pretty relative, as it is pretty strong storm still. From that first one, it still shows pockets of up to, 3 feet plus. So, not good. And, which other model we look at. And GFS does bring in that second system, which piles on top of that. So, that is definitely something to be probably worried about as well. The Canadian model also shows a very large snowfall footprint, one of significant means from mainly just that first system, very similar to what the European shows, so we'll have to wait and see. Kuchera, you can see pretty similar, because this is assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, and a lot of this will be heavy wet snow, so this one's probably more accurate. It may be even wetter snow, more like an 8 or 9-to-1. Especially initially when that snow transitions from that rain. But that is that in terms of the snowy side and all the models and the differences. So again, GFS a bit weaker, Canadian, European more aligned, more further towards the south, especially when it goes into the initial kind of coast of the United States. Do bring the Canadian and Canadian and Euro more snow into the mountains northwest, central west, not northwest. While the GFS scurries out of here quicker. Severe weather, I want to focus on that. I've been mentioning that, and Storm Prediction Center, you can see, has very large areas. So day 4, this is far out for a severe weather outlook to be issued, and 15%, which is a slight. Again, there will probably be an enhanced at least. Day 5 and day 6, look how big those slight risks are. That is very significant. Definitely an enhanced at least will be issued, if not a moderate. I'm pretty confident in that one because of just how big this area is and how dynamic the system is. And massive cities, right? Dallas, Memphis, Kansas City, Omaha, Tulsa, and of course many others. Little Rock, St. Louis. I mean, there's so many in here. They're not mentioned. So that is that from the severe weather side. Obviously, definitely something to watch for. And you can see it's, again, 3 days of just consecutive onslaught, probably extending into Thursday. It's just that it's a bit too far out. Let's take a look at the long-range pattern. April 14th through the 18th, this is just kind of climate-wise. You can see behind this big system, there will be a lot of cool air. If you recall, the Canadian showed that impressive anomaly. Look at that. That is impressive. A lot of warm air towards the east. The eastern coast, out ahead of the system, will be warm, and really much of the Midwest will be as well, except this is just a select time frame. And notice above average precip towards the east here, a bit drying out behind that system. That makes sense. 8 to 14 day outlook. This is further out. Notice that cool air meandering towards the east, warming back up potentially across the west, and then drying out as well, which we'll have to wait and see. If a scenario like the GFS were to occur, this would not be accurate, as it shows that second system moving in, and that would be a pretty wet period. So we'll have to wait and see. 3 to 4 week outlook for those that really want a far outlook into the last week of April into early May. They show mainly a warmer pattern, especially across the south. But again, April's been twisting a lot of, and especially late March. It's been 1 week very cold, 1 week very warm. So usual spring weather, but definitely more on the cool side this spring for at least the Midwest and Eastern United States. As I can't say that for those Southwest, as they're pretty much dealing with the heat wave right now. And if you're to take a look at the NOAA hazards, you can see there's heat warnings and heat watches, heat advisories. So definitely something of concern. And this also shows how cold it is, though. Freeze watches all the way to Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and we do have winter storm warnings across the Appalachian Mountains. So that is that. Again, I'll be making updates on this, uploads. Maybe not every single day up and through this, the system occurs, but at least every other day. Though again, there will probably be just like 2 or 3 days in a row I make a video, and then after the system occurs, we'll have to wait and see what happens. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya.